Hey guys, it's Hank from Sprues and Brews, and today I want to talk about getting into the hobby of scale modeling. I used to make military models when I was a kid, and when I got back into the hobby a few years ago, I realized there are so many manufacturers that make plastic model kits nowadays. This can make it tricky for somebody who's just getting started to find a kit that's perfect for them. You want to find something that's not too difficult, that's going to look great as a finished product, and most importantly is going to be a blast to build along the way. So today I'm going to give you 5 recommendations for kits to pick up if you're just getting into the hobby, and some tips and tricks that I wish I knew when I first started out. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video to see my last recommendation, a kit that really helped me develop my skills and get me to where I am today. So if you're just getting into scale modeling, here are 5 kits that I suggest you pick up to get started. Alright, so number 5 on my list, my first recommendation is Tamiya's 135 scale Churchill Mark 7. This is kit number 35210, and it was originally released way back in 1977, but it was updated a little bit in 1996. Still, it's an old kit, but it's definitely a good one. Spoiler alert, you're gonna hear me say this a lot on this list, but Tamiya engineering is second to none. It's absolutely fantastic stuff, and it makes building such a pleasure for the modeler. In my opinion, for people just getting into the hobby, Tamiya is gonna be your best friend. This is one of the first kits that I built when I got back into the hobby, and I absolutely loved it. I love it so much, I'm actually refurbishing it now because I want it to be a key part of my collection, and I'm just upgrading it to match my skill level now. But in any case, fantastic kit for a beginner. This is my first recommendation for a new builder because you can really focus on the bare essentials of scale model building. First things first is construction. You can work on your plastic cement techniques, your sanding techniques to get rid of flash, and the cut marks where you clipped pieces off from the sprue. And it just generally helps you get used to instructions and kind of making a plan as you work through a build. Tamiya has you build this in a few different sections: the turret, the upper hull, the lower hull, and then you add the tracks. So you can paint all those pieces, put it together, and you got an awesome finished product. This also made my list because it's super easy to paint. Realistically, you could do this with 3 colors: olive drab, black, and some kind of tan or khaki color for the tarps on the side of the turret. This ease of painting makes it a great option for someone just getting into the hobby. You can paint this by hand with a brush, or you can paint it with a rattle can, spray paint can, which is what I did the first time I made it. And if you're a little more experienced, you can use an airbrush, but more on that later. Awesome place to start your scale modeling journey. You can pick one of these up for about 30 bucks from one of your standard scale modeling retailers. I like to use Sprue Brothers. You can also get it from Andy's Hobby headquarters, or you can even find it on Amazon. So if you're looking to start your scale modeling journey, this is an awesome place to start. The Churchill is a super iconic vehicle. It's a breeze to build, it's awesome to paint, and it's a great way to get some experience under your belt. So that's my number 5 recommendation. All right, so the next recommendation on my list for a new scale modeler is Airfix's 172 scale BF109E4. The BF109 is an iconic aircraft, one of the most recognizable of all time, let alone World War II, and was the backbone of the Luftwaffe during the war. Airfix has an awesome recreation here in their little 172 scale kit. It's one of quite a few variants that they make, but this is the recommendation on my list. It's a great subject, and it really helped get me hooked when I first started the hobby again. The reason this is on the list: value for money. Believe it or not, you can pick one of these up for under $10, which is awesome. One of the biggest mistakes I think you can make when you first get into this hobby is going out and dropping a lot of money on a really complicated kit. You can spend $60, $70, $80, $90 on a beautiful kit with awesome construction, but your skill levels might not be there yet to really make the most of that kit. It's an easy way to get frustrated because you'll finish up and then you'll look at pictures that other people made online, or you look at the box art and it's not exactly what you want. And it can be frustrating, and it can definitely get you upset and make it hard to get hooked on the hobby. So what I recommend doing is looking for some value kits. Don't let the price tag fool you on this. This is an awesome little kit. Airfix did a great job designing it, and it falls together super well. There are 2 reasons why this wasn't the first recommendation on my list. Masking the canopy can be a little tricky, and the box art paint scheme is pretty complicated. If you don't know what canopy masking is, it's a technique that scale modelers use to cover up clear plastic parts when they're painting. It's really common with aircraft like this, where there's a glass canopy. So what you do is put on these canopy masks, which are made out of masking tape, or there's some pre-cut ones that you can buy online to cover up those clear parts. You can paint the whole kit, and then at the end you take them off to reveal that clean plastic piece. That can be particularly tricky in 172 scale, but the nice thing about the BF109 is that it has boxy windows. That means you can cut your own masks out of masking tape and apply those to the areas you don't want to paint. Or if you're brush painting, you can pretty easily handle the canopy with some careful line work. Now for that second piece about a difficult paint job. If you look at the box art for this kit, this particular BF109, the historical reference piece, had a very complicated camouflage scheme, which is awesome, don't get me wrong, but if you're just getting started, you're probably not going to be able to replicate that exactly. I didn't, for one. When I painted up this model, I didn't match the camouflage scheme exactly. Which brings me to a really important point. Scale modeling is an art, it's not a science. So you don't have to make things exactly like they look on the box art or exactly like the historical reference. As long as you're having fun with it and you're happy with the end result, Play around and try and find something that looks good to you. So what I ended up with was a finished product that I really liked, but it wasn't 100% exactly what the box art called for, which is totally okay. You can paint this kit up with just a few colors and have an awesome result. As I mentioned, don't let those two things deter you. This is an awesome kit for getting into the hobby, and it's a nice challenge. It's fantastic value play. At 10 bucks, you can pick up one of these, you can pick up a couple of these, and you can really grow and hone your skills. This was the first 172 scale aircraft that I made when I got back into the hobby, and it was a blast. It got me hooked, and I'll definitely pick up another one. And 172 kits are pretty small. They don't take up too much space, which is awesome if you're gonna start a collection. So this little Airfix 109 is definitely one of my recommendations if you're just getting into the hobby. Go pick this kit up. All right, next on my list, another Tamiya kit. This is their M4 E8 E8 Sherman Easy 8. It's kit number 35346, and it was originally released in 2015. Now, if you're into military history at all, or World War II history, you know the M4 Sherman. It's one of the most iconic vehicles of all time, and that's the reason it makes this list, icon status. On top of that, as I mentioned before, Tamiya engineering is on point, and this thing is an absolute breeze to build. The Sherman is one of the most recognizable military vehicles of all time. You've probably seen it in newsreel footage, in movies, in video games. If you've seen the 2014 movie Fury, starring Mr. Brad Pitt, this is the tank. It's super important in scale modeling to build something you're passionate about. I love Shermans. I have since I was a kid. When I got back into the hobby, it was one of the first things I looked for was a nice Sherman kit. I definitely recommend this one because it's a brand new mold, relatively speaking. It's only a few years old, and it's a blast to put together. The reason this wasn't earlier on my list is because it's a little more difficult to paint than that Churchill. Sherman suspension systems have bogies with individual road wheels on them, and each of those road wheels have rubber tires. That means that while the rest of the vehicle is olive drab, all of that rubber needs to be black, which can be a little tricky to paint. There's a bunch of different ways that people build Shermans. Some people build all the bogies separately and attach them to the vehicle at the end after they've painted. Some people attach them right on and then paint the whole thing. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but in any case, there's some delicate painting that has to be done for those rubber road wheels. It's an awesome learning opportunity for a new modeler getting into the hobby, because you have to kind of think ahead and figure out a good strategy for how to tackle the build. More on that later with my number one kit. Stay tuned. But yeah, this is a great kit to get you into building with sub-assemblies. It's something you're definitely gonna have to do down the road, and this is a good place to practice. Pretty simple in the whole scheme of things, but some delicate painting and some forward thinking to figure out the best way to tackle this kit. And one of the awesome parts, you can upgrade it. I built this kit years ago, and I've gone back and updated it multiple times. I've added these awesome resin alpine figures. I've added these logs on the side, which are made out of real twigs. I've added some stowage and tarps on the back. Endless possibilities. This is a great base to explore and experiment and practice your scale modeling skills. If you want to build it straight out of the box, that's great. And if you want to go crazy and add a bunch of parts, that's awesome too. So that said, awesome kit for any skill level, fantastic kit for a beginner, and it's an absolute icon. You're gonna love building it. You're gonna love having it on your shelf. You can pick one of these up for about 40 US dollars. They're on almost any scale modeling site, and they're almost always on Amazon, which is handy too. Though I recommend shopping from your scale modeling retailers. Gotta shop small, support those guys. So that is my number 3 recommendation for a scale modeler who's just getting into the hobby. Go pick up a Sherman. If you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure you hit that like button. It's super helpful for me, and it tells YouTube that you like scale modeling content, so it's a win-win. Also, please hit that subscribe button for more awesome scale modeling content, build videos, tutorials, even some museum walkthroughs, lots of fun stuff. So thank you so much. Let's get back into the video and see what those last 2 recommendations are. All right, number 2, don't get mad at me. It's another BF109. This is Tamiya's 148 scale BF109 E4-7 Trop, or Tropical. It's kit number 61063, and it was originally released back in 1998. I love BF109s, they're great, they hold a special place in my heart, and I will keep making them until they fill up my entire house and I have nowhere to sleep. Okay, maybe not that much, but they're great. This particular kit was also the first 148 scale aircraft I made when I got back into the hobby, and look where we are now. Definitely got me hooked. As I mentioned with the Airfix kit, this thing practically falls together. The construction is perfect. The fit is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Tamiya. One of the nice things with this aircraft, which is unusual for aircraft builds, is that you can almost build the whole thing before you do any painting, with the exception of the cockpit. Obviously, you have to paint that first before you seal the whole thing up. Overall, the 109 is a pretty simple aircraft. It has a really simple landing gear assembly, and the prop can be made separately and put on at the end with the use of some polycaps, which is awesome. Now, the reason this makes the list, it's an awesome kit to practice your painting techniques. I love building American aircraft, P-47s, B-17s, the like, but with USAAF stuff, you pretty much get olive drab or aluminum. German camouflage, really cool. And look at this thing, it looks like a damn cheetah. You're not gonna find that anywhere else. So you can paint this thing by hand, you can paint it with a spray can, but if you really wanna take your skills to the next level, invest in an airbrush and an air compressor. There are a ton of great videos on YouTube recommending ones for beginners. I got mine off of Amazon and the whole thing cost me about $100. I've been using the same one this whole time for about the last 5 years. It still holds up and it works like $1,000,000. There are some super high-end airbrushes out there, but you just need a decent one to get started and you're gonna see the difference right away. I could have painted this by hand, but the airbrush really takes your finished product to the next level. Historically speaking, these planes were airbrushed with big airbrushes, so if you want to do the real thing, that's the way to do it. This plane is also great for weathering. You can use a variety of techniques to really make your finished product look like the real thing. You can apply something called a pin wash, which is essentially a really thinned down paint that you put in the panel lines, the individual panel lines on the plane, and it creates the shadow effect and really makes the whole thing pop, and it's an awesome look. There are a ton of videos on YouTube about how to do that too, so check them out. Like with the Airfix 109, it has that big boxy canopy, which makes it pretty easy to mask. And there's a bunch of different decal offerings that come with the kit, so you can choose from a variety of different historical aircraft. I just built this kit up again a couple months ago in a different paint scheme, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I love this build. I think it came out awesome. I used aftermarket decals on it, and it really goes to show that this basic kit goes a really long way. It's awesome for beginners and it's awesome for more experienced modelers. So down the road, if you liked building this first one, you can pick up another, challenge yourself, maybe get some aftermarket decals, and you can make pretty much any historical aircraft you want. You can pick one of these up for about 20 bucks, and again, awesome opportunity to practice your weathering skills that doesn't break the bank. All right, we made it to the end. This is my last recommendation for a new scale modeler trying to get into the hobby. This is Tamiya's Panther D in 135 scale. As I mentioned way back at the beginning of this video, this was the kit that really pushed me from a novice builder to a more advanced scale modeler. It was probably the 6th or 7th kit that I completed, but it was the first one that I went, yes, this is good. I'm getting somewhere. Just because this is #1 on my list, that doesn't mean go pick it up right now if you've never built a scale model before. Do some of the ones I recommended prior to this. They're a little bit simpler and they'll help you hone your skills and get to this point. But this is #1 on my list for a really important reason. It makes you think outside the box, which is super important for a scale modeler. What I mean by that is you can't always follow the instruction sheet exactly as it's laid out. This kit has a bunch of pioneering tools, AKA the shovels and stuff on the outside of the tank, and it has a lot of road wheels. German tanks are notorious for their interleaved road wheels. There's a ton of them on this tank. And what that means for a scale modeler is you need to paint a lot of rubber tires that can't be accessed once the kit is fully built. So what you need to do to really knock this kit out of the park is you need to think about the construction process in an abstract way and figure out how you're gonna put this thing together and how you're gonna paint it during that process. You can build pieces, keep them organized in separate little sections, dry fit them, test fit them on the vehicle to see what fits, and then you can go ahead and paint everything and apply it at the end. One of the biggest things I can recommend is read your instruction manuals first from start to finish. Look at all the individual steps and try and picture, how does this fit on the build? What's gonna be covered? What's gonna be exposed? When can I paint these pieces? And by doing that, you can make this mental plan for how you want to approach the kit. As I mentioned before, Tamiya engineering, fantastic. So as long as you put everything where it's supposed to be, it's going to fall together like a dream. That said, it gives you the flexibility to paint this strategically. And on top of that, German camouflage is really cool. This was one of the first kits that I airbrushed with this tri-color camouflage, and I was super happy with how it came out. You can work on your airbrushing techniques, you can work on your weathering techniques, and you can come up with a finished product that you're really proud of. This is one of the first tanks that I ever competed at an IPMS competition, and it actually came in second for 135 scale armor, which I was super proud of. So you can find one of these for about 50 bucks nowadays. It's a little expensive, so like I said, start with some of the previous kits that I mentioned in this video. You don't want to dive right into this one, but after you get a few kits under your belt, a few armor kits, or a few aircraft kits, this is an awesome challenge. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and are inspired to go pick up one of these kits and try it yourself. If you're new to the hobby, welcome. Scale modeling is awesome, and don't let anybody tell you differently. There's a great community of model builders out there. We love history, we love tanks, we love aircraft, and we love doing what we do. And one of the best parts is everybody wants to help everybody grow. I think in general, modelers are really supportive. I hope you've gotten something out of this video and have the courage to go pick up a kit and get involved. If you haven't already, please like this video and hit subscribe for more great scale modeling content. I'm also on Instagram at @spruesandbrews, so go check me out there too. All right, so thanks everybody. Until next time, happy building. Cheers.